So we are now in the Thurber Cemetery, and I thought we would walk around and have a peek. They have some different markers here that tell some of the stories of the town. So that's the gate right over there. And as soon as you come in, this little brick structure catches your eye. There is a plaque right there, so I thought we would see what it says. It says Randolph Bennett, October 4th, 1940 to May 14th, 2000, Honorable Mayor of Thurber, Texas, 1960 to 2000. So I guess this is his final resting place right here. Let's look around at some of these others. This is still very much an active burial ground. Here you can see Joyce on the left. She passed away August 25th, 2018. And Bill, her husband, passed away in 2000. And they were married in 1952. They have this sign here, and it says 1,018 unknown graves located and marked. MA is male adult, MI is male infant, MC male child, FA is female adult, FI is female infant, and FC is female child. So guess we're gonna see some of that in here. I love all these old fences in cemeteries. It's one of my favorite things. Look at the fence work on this one. All those crosses across the top. I have seen these before, but what is different is I have not seen this top part that attaches to the cross like that. I've only seen them where they're just like this. You can see the top of that one has been broken off. But that's very interesting. It's different, beautiful. A lot of times you see these corner posts and they're acorns or something. But it says Causa Marie Figlia di something. Part of the bush is covering it up. It is in what is maybe Italian, I guess, or something. 1902. Looks like just a little child. I'm not sure on this one. Has a sign, but it is all faded. There is wording on it. It says glass and chinaware on graves. Power mowers have practically eliminated the decoration of graves, and adornment was a Mexican custom to show grief over death. Family and friends were in mourning. There you would be able to something. I don't know. Basically, there's glassware on the graves, and then when they mowed it many years ago, I guess it destroyed a lot of it. That sign's so faded, it's very hard to read. Maybe it showed up better on camera for you guys and you could pause it and look at it, but it really wasn't showing up well at all in person. This is interesting. There's a wooden cross there and a cement block, lots of metal pipes, I guess, to keep it from being damaged when they mow it. And it has kind of sunken in here, but just got a wooden cross with a tin marker on it. And it looks like it says John Lopez 1936 on the left and Barbara Lopez on the right, if I'm saying that correctly. It's kind of hard to see, and I'm really not wanting to step in there to be disrespectful or even more. That's such tall grass. Don't want to meet any snakes. I am seeing quite a few of these metal crosses in here, and I'm taking those are the ones that they may designate with characters on there to let you know which one it is. This cross is kind of broken off. Here's a really interesting border around this one. I love this. Beautiful gate. There is a marker back there. Looks like Wazaliski and family. And there's some writing down here. Looks like 1868 to 1920, and then the bottom one is 1870 to 1913. The weeds are in the way. And I'm going to be respectful and not walk in there. There's the name. Migrated from Poland, mined Thurber coal for 30 years, and was a skilled brick mason, as evidenced by this neat, distinctive brick wall which he built in 1913. Wow. Pete helped build the Thurber smokestack in 1908. That's pretty impressive too. So some town history right there. The guy that helped build that smokestack up there, as far as that big structure standing and all that brickwork that's still evident. Here's a kind of a recent burial from 2017, Lieutenant Colonel in World War II, U.S. Air Force. So Leo Belinsky. And you can see he's got another marker up here with Leo, and then daughter Jennifer, who passed away in 1992. She was born in 1963. And looks like his wife is still living. Like I said, I'm going to be respectful and not walk on these. Looks like Dorothy Wheel, another one of the Belinsky relatives here. Somehow they're related. Lysick. Hopefully I'm not butchering these names or anything. A lot of little markers here. This is a much bigger cemetery than I expected, but you know, this was a town of 10,000 people. So they would have had quite a few at one time. So I'm going to try not to stop and read every little marker. I think we'll just point out some of the more interesting ones. You can see there's markers outside of these fence areas in random places, and they could be anywhere. Absolutely anywhere. And you never know what you're walking over, especially since there's so many unknowns. Here we have several markers here. That looks like one. There's one that's busted right there. So, you know, this sort of is sad in a way to see. To see these markers just kind of sitting here, and the cemetery is overgrown. But what do you do? This is a ghost town. There's only 2 operating businesses here and a historical society museum. And if you look how far back these markers are going, how far to the side, and you can see where I parked, but yet there's more markers up that way, markers over that way. It would be so much to mow and maintain, and it would cost a lot of money. And of course, you got to be aware of these markers like this. This says 1850 to 1922. Can't make out the name because it's so overgrown. And someone is in this iron area, but I don't see a marker. Might be covered up with grass. There's a lot of markers through here. A lot of markers. Last name is Fanning right here. 1844 to 1920. It really is amazing to see how many are in here, and to know that I'm probably passing hundreds of them through here. I think the other thing interesting about this town is how many different nationalities of people lived here. 18 different nationalities. So people from 18 different countries all living and working together peacefully. It's the kind of thing you would think wouldn't happen, as they disagree over religion or beliefs, customs, things like that. But haven't read anything so far about any major quarrels. I'm sure there were some, but no big old shootouts or anything like that is what I mean. You can see markers all over the place. Some of them have brick borders and some of them are just out in the open. Every once in a while I'm seeing some cow patties in here, so the sad thing is some of these markers are probably getting broken from the cattle running through here. That, I don't know if you guys know anything about cattle, but they really are lazy. They will lean up against anything because they don't want to stand, and they'll rub and scratch and all kinds of things. That's a little baby, John Henry Hickman, and born April 9th, 1910, died April 28th, 1911. Let's see what this marker over here says. The Historical Society or somebody has placed these signs. Hopefully this isn't too faded. You can see more graves way up over there. This is a large cemetery. This would be a lot of money to mow, to hire somebody, and a lot of gas if you did it yourself, plus a lot of work in this heat. So this is the final resting place for George Milligan, 1876 to 1909. Inscribed on his tombstone are these words: "As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you must be. So trust in God and follow me." Here we have that kind of keeping the cattle out is what my guess is. It's a good idea to have stuff like that around the graves. Here's another sign on this one over here. Seashells on graves. Shells on Thurber graves destroyed by power mowers. The custom began in coastal Africa and spread to Europe, which was Italy, then America. Rebirth and death. Swirls in conch seashells represented birth canal. No conch shells in inland Thurber. Oyster shells substituted is what that says. It's really hard to read since it's so faded. I see another sign over here. I will say, even though this is overgrown, it's still a beautiful cemetery to visit. I love that they've placed these little markers here that tell some of the history. This one's not so faded, just slightly. Mike McConnell and BTT Union. After the 1903 strike, Thurber became 100% unionized. If one worked in a Thurber, he belonged to one of the 8 unions in Thurber. McConnell was proud to be a member of the Brick, Tile, and Terracotta Workers Union, BTT, but the B inscribed on Mike's monument is backwards. Ah, I see it. It is backwards right there. It's just kind of a homemade etching in that rock right there. Like I said, there's more markers in this stuff. They're all over the place. I imagine that to find many of these graves, especially that are unknown, they probably had to use ground penetrating radar, and that's how you find some of these. Some of them obviously have brick borders around them like this, and it's a given with the ones that have fences. But before we skip these 2 signs, let's go over here. So as you come into this cemetery, they do have game cameras that keep watch on you, both the front of your car and the rear of your car, to record the license plate, because they've had some vandals in here, I guess, or people stealing stuff. But I am being watched in the corner over there by something living, and it is a deer. So he's been watching me for a little while because I've been watching him. Looks like now he's kind of walking off. I don't know if he's going to hop that fence or what over there. So this is the Henley family burials, 12 from 1908 to 2005. Tom Henley was a Thurber barber, as was his son Bruce. When Thurber shut down, the Henley families were able to relocate in the nearby surrounding area, mainly Gordon, Texas, and they were able to continue interring family members in this cemetery. Charlie Keener family has 9 burials in this cemetery. You can see all of these markers stretched in a straight line right through there. So this is the Reverend J.B. Dobson, circuit riding Methodist minister. Briefly served Thurber but wanted to be buried here. Note the emblem on the tombstone. I did notice something circular on top. See what that says. There's a Mason symbol right here. United Methodist Clergy. So he's on a horse there. And the dates, 1856 to 1919 is what that says. I think it shows up way better on camera than it does in person. It's interesting how that happens. Some pretty nice brickwork there. And it looks to be a little young child. 1908 to 1910, Mackie Mabel Boyd is what that says. I see one more historical marker back here. This is a big, thick marker, probably one of the thickest out here, if not the thickest, but it says Pinky Lee, wife of Will Lawrence, 1891 to 1917. Look how thick that marker is. My dear friend is going off in the woods. I don't know if that was caught on camera or not, but he was hopping back through there, a whitetail. He hopped over that fence and just kept going. There's a couple crosses right over here. But he was in this cemetery for a long time watching me walk all throughout over there. I was making my way over to this sign, and you can see some plants that they've planted here. No telling how many years ago. They're still growing. It's pretty common to see that marking a grave or a family burial plot. It says grave markers. As long as Thurber was viable, families lovingly tended graves. When Thurber was abandoned, families vowed to return some days to replace temporary markers, but that never happened, and fires destroyed wooden crosses. These bricks are from something cemetery restoration attempt, blading with a tractor. Yeah. So mowing right over it, you know, kind of trimming it up, accidentally damaging and chopping these things up, I guess. But there are all sorts of markers in here. These are just sort of a metal pipe with cement in it. And then you can see some bricks down through here. This one still has the funeral home marker there. So it says 1861 to 1936. The last name is Bayer. Just like the aspirin Bayer. Spelled the exact same way. John Stevens right over there. Let's make our way up through here a little bit. Still worried about snakes. The grass in some areas is pretty tall. And I am seeing holes to different critters and stuff like that. Not sure what they are, and I don't want to find out. Last name is Tackett there, and it's covered by grass. That headstone has been knocked over somehow. This looks like a Woodman of the World marker right here. I don't know if that's what that is. It'll tell maybe on the other side. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. So Vandy M. West, 1855 to 1919. Gone but not forgotten. Here is a brick wall here as well. I bet it was made by the guy that we learned about earlier. Knights of Pythias Burials. KP Gate emblem stolen. 2 male infants and 14 male kids, parallel rows. Graves are precisely located, but all unknown. Tombstone stolen when cemetery abandoned 1936 to about 1970. Knights of Pythias was very active in Thurber, and KP official state burials possible, but no records. Graves verified by the gravity gradient analysis. So, pretty interesting. See, you can, more of these graves where it says female adult and then male infant here. Could have been someone that passed away in childbirth. You just never know. There's a lot of those around. Castaldo children's deaths. Several Thurber families buried 3 children within a year, but the Castaldos had the grief of burying 3 children within 1 week. 1/15/1919, and then later on the same day, they had another one, and then 1/22/1919. Immigrants' children less immune to American diseases? Question mark? That's a good question. See a little metal marker right down through there, just basically kind of round marker with a cross. But then they have that large marker here. It's more of these plants that have been planted around this tree. So, you can see the different languages that are on these markers, so that's also interesting. Where else are you going to see a cemetery this size with so many languages? This says Anthony Basili. Anthony dug his own grave, lined it with bricks, put hinged metal doors above the casket level, and at the surface erected a large wooden cross, which I guess is the same wooden cross right here. Basili's casket, built by a friend, had a glass faceplate. For some reason, a new suit was folded and placed inside the foot of the casket. So it does have a date on there of 1925. I can't really read that top one there, and I don't want to walk off across that, but you can see where this is lined with brick right down through here, and there's some kind of marker right here that looks like it has writing on it as well. Pretty interesting that he dug his own grave and put items inside of his casket like that. Like I said, there are a lot of markers here. Very beautiful markers. You know, one of my favorite things, like I've said in many videos, are these fences, but equally as impressive with these fences are the markers. They're nice and big and tall. Love the crosses on top. Now this one must have family still in the area or somewhere near. Everything else hasn't been mowed, but you can clearly see the outline around this where it's been mowed. I don't know if it's someone that is operating one of the restaurants or that just lives in town. Here we have a male adult. This foot marker says SF, Stella Fornaswinski, if I'm saying that correct. I hope I'm not butchering that. Daughter of Mr. and Mrs. John Fornaswinski. Born October 30th, 1909, and died February 28th, 1925. So like I said, you can obviously tell that this has been trimmed all around. I've skipped that sign over there, but I don't want to skip this sign, so I don't think I read this one. You end up going all over the place out here, and it's hard to remember where you've went. So that is definitely a sturdy metal cross, and it does have a plate there. Looks like it's been shot a couple times even. It's hard to say, but I can't make anything out on it. It's just too rusted. But here we have the Solignani sisters, if I'm saying that correctly. Hopefully I'm not butchering that too much. Olympia and Coca. Thurber Junction, bootleg capital of Texas. Prohibition repealed in 1933, and first legalized drinking permit in Palo Pinto County enabled the sisters to run the barn. It was a honky-tonk located a quarter-mile northwest of this cemetery. For 40 years they ran this bar, friendly and big-hearted. They were respected by all. Now I see Elizabeth Ann right here, 1981. I don't know. Oh, okay, down at the bottom they have the nickname Coca. And then I saw Olympia right here. She passed away in 1972. She was 10 years older than Coca. She was born in 1904 and she was born in 1914. And there's another family member right here. So someone planted a tree right here, I believe, marking this grave. And there is a fence around it, but there is no way in heck you can get to that. There's all this shrubbery. Oh, there's a marker right here that's kind of sunk down in there and leaning. Looks like it might be slightly cracked as well. But there is a marker inside that fenced area, but that tree has grown all around it. Fence is kind of fallen. A lot of fence work in here. Hopefully you guys are seeing some of these grasshoppers popping. Some of them are about the size of hummingbirds. So this is the Terra Meno family, Martin, Pete, and Bill. It says they were entrepreneurs. They had the meat market, grocery store, picture show, dance hall, saloon, and wine merchants. They were civic-minded, but closing of Thurber mines and the Great Depression ended their business ventures. So this is where they lay. Makes you wonder if they moved away, came back. So there's these metal markers around here. The interesting thing about that is they had reunions here for a long time of people that just used to live here. Luigi Scopel, typical Italian miner. Most of Thurber's miners came from northern Italy and comprised about 50% of the workforce. Miners made about $2 a day, 10-hour days. Rent was $6 a month. Family medical was $1 a month. Uniquely, Thurber had two coexisting UMW union locals, number 2538 English officials and the Italian local 2753. So this little marker, Baby Boy Gallin, July 6th to July 9th, 1909, that's held up really well. Almost looks brand new. Tony Gardetto and UMW, September 1903, Rocky Creek Bridge, north of Thurber Junction, Mingus. Thurber miner Gardetto translated UMW organizer Warden's speech into Italian, Spanish, and German, which inspired miners to join the union, a very consequential event in Thurber history. So he is buried right inside that gated area. Lots and lots of markers. You could spend a lot of time walking around to each one of these. But I thought we would just hit some of the key parts where the signage is. So one of the interesting things about this town is, even though it was folded and most of the houses and structures were moved off, the railroad company sold them and people were forced to leave. No business here, nobody working here, no place to work at. And that company owned the town, so they could do whatever they wanted with it. But they held reunions here for a long time. People would meet here and have picnics, social gatherings, catch up with what's happened, and it was a way for them to keep in touch, most likely much like how our social media is today. But I'm not for sure how long those continued and when they stopped. But you can see videos of them online, actually, and little bitty kids that probably never lived in the town came to these reunions, and they look like they're all having a good time. This is Anton George Nader, and it says Texas, Private 165th Depot Brigade. He was born in 1893, passed away October 24th, 1918. And he certainly has a nice bricked in area right here. And you can see this is a little mound where it's just a pile of bricks. So I don't know if it had something like this and it fell in, or they just designated it with a brick pile. But there's this little brick area right here as well. It's kind of fallen in. Those are all those Thurber bricks. Hopefully we can read this. This one's kind of peeling. Joe Abraham, Thurber Junction grocer and banker. 1896, Joe built the grocery store. Joe, with horse and buggy, made daily trips to Thurber to take grocery orders. Delivery the next day. So it's kind of like much like Amazon, I guess, almost, or Walmart with their delivery groceries, just not quite as fast, but that's impressive for that time period. 1907, founded Thurber Junction State Bank. Big family, 11 kids. With 1928 depression, Joe benevolently extended credit, and over $6,000 owed to Joe upon his death in 1934. And that's Joe right there. His wife passed away in 1928. He lived much longer than her. Joseph is 1860 to 1934, and Myra is 1887 to 1928. So it says father and mother, so I'm assuming husband and wife. Could be possible that it's father and daughter, I guess. Look at here. George, son of Anton and Tyla George, 1903 to 1917. And we have Tom George, 1867 to 1932. And there's Anton, 1870 to 1938. It's very hot out here, so this shade feels wonderful. Although there's a lot of tall plants in here going up to almost my kneecap. But that little one right here is just a little infant. And it does have a marker. And you do have to be careful where you step, because you can trip over this stuff. But that does not have a name on it that I can see. But that is like a baby bed, maybe a baby crib. An old one that's been set out here. Obviously made them a lot better, but that's what that looks like to me, is a crib. Here's a fenced in area here, and it's all collapsing, and that growth is on the inside. It's kind of a frame here inside there to maybe brace it, I'm not sure. Do see a marker, but it's got a lot of stuff on it. There's one more marker over here, and I see more up over that way. The camera is bouncing, I apologize. This is tall grass that I'm having to walk over, plus look for snakes. And there's all sorts of indentions in the ground. It's severely uneven. And trying to watch my step and film at the same time, and it is a challenge. Mass burials. Did high sulfuric content of coal protect Thurber from deadly 1918 flu epidemic? Or officials overwhelmed, deaths not reported? Gravity gradient analyses show that 4 trenches, burials in tandem columns, all male adults. More flu deaths than thought. So that's interesting how they've put these little signs to get you to think and wonder. The only 1918 one that I've seen so far was the service member, and it was in October. So I don't know what his cause of death was. Everywhere I'm walking has markers. And there's more markers up over this way. Markers way up over there. I can see the sun hitting it. I'm trying to just make my way over to where these signs are to read them. As you can see here, there's tons of these white crosses. And I mean tons. Let's see what this sign says. Mary Green, 2 identical tombstones with identical names. Mary Green, both wives of Jack Green. It sure is. This marker right here, and then another one right back there. That's an interesting thing. Did they mess up the order? Order it from 2 places? I don't know on that one. Let's see what this one says. Lewis and Lucy White. Lewis White drowned in Thurber, Little Lake. His mother, Lucy, grieved herself to death 2 months later to the day. Wow. So here is Lewis White. And he died August 22nd, 1934. And then mother, Lucy White, October 22nd, 1934. Huh. It's another Woodman of the World marker right there. This might have had some sort of wooden fence around this, and it burned down in that fire that they're talking about. The other thing you gotta watch out are those red ants. That's a massive nest right there. I have walked through a ton of spider webs. Luckily no snakes of any kind. It's rattlesnakes that I'm really worried about. Another dip. You can hear the pitch in my voice as I'm walking over. I don't know if the camera shook too bad. I'm trying to hold it still. Eva Chapman, first known burial in Thurber Cemetery. Don't know the month, 21st of 1890. So right near the entrance, they have this on a pedestal here. Historic Texas Cemetery. And this huge marker right here. This has a lot of names on it. I'm trying to avoid the spider webs hanging from this tree. I've already walked through enough, but these, I think, are all the people that are maybe interred in here, but have no marker. So there's no telling which spot is theirs. And then you can see bricks down here at the bottom that I guess families have paid to have them inscribed to help with the donations of the care of this cemetery, as well as some of the markers and stuff. They've had a restoration effort going on in here, but I think it's been a while. There is a sign talking about it up front. But it is impressive to see what they have done. And that you can tell they've put a really good effort into maintaining it. This is a head right there that looks like an Indian head. Native American. Taken from an African American section. Returned location of grave unknown. William Haxel died circa 1915. Pays homage to the Indian wife? Question mark. So I don't know. As you look on here, there's a lot of Italians, like it's saying, but there's names from all over the place. A lot of Hispanic ones, English ones. Pretty interesting. If you ever get a chance, it's worth a stop. So if you ever get a chance to visit Thurber, I highly recommend it. Go ahead and eat at one of the restaurants and support those businesses there. They could probably use the help and maybe put some of the funds to use on restoring some of those things over there. But this cemetery is highly fascinating. You can spend a long time in here. It's a lot to look at. I walked around a lot of it, but not all of it. There's just too many markers in here. I didn't expect it to be this size, but I enjoyed reading the history. I hope you did as well. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the tour of this town and the cemetery. And we'll see you guys next time. Wanted to show you guys a trick for removing these burrs, and that is to use one of these combs, and if the teeth are a little bit further apart, it's actually better. You know, if you You can pick those off by hand, but sometimes they poke you in the hand. The best thing is just keep a plastic fork inside your car at all times. And I had one, but I think the kids used it last and didn't put it back. But these combs will work too. Just put that sucker underneath, pop it off. That's all there is to it. They'll kind of grab it and you just fling it to the side. Just like that. There's no way of getting them poked in your fingers at that point.